Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views. The time is 9 minutes past 9, and we are well and truly in the second hour of the show. And we're going to be focusing, I think, on something very, very important. For too long, the story of Palestinian Christians has either been ignored, distorted, or used as a weapon in someone else's political narrative. I think there's been a lot of uproar, especially with Christian Zionists around the world who use the plight of Christians to justify Israeli policy. The very Christians they claim to speak for, the descendants, I think, of the earliest followers of Jesus Christ, tell a very, very different story. We've heard of bombed churches, of silenced voices, and to be honest, a misrepresented faith. Palestinian Christians are caught in the crosshairs of occupation and Christian Zionism, which has become a powerful force driving complicity when it comes to the genocide that we see unfolding in Gaza and the continued occupation of Palestinian lands in some of the occupied territories. And this morning, we're joined by someone who has seen and been in the front lines of that complicity firsthand. We'll be speaking to Reverend Solomuzi Mabuza, who's an ordained minister of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Southern Africa, and is also a council member of the Anti-Apartheid Movement for Palestine, the South African chapter. He also served in Palestine as the coordinator of multiple advocacy initiatives under the YMCA and YWCA umbrella, and their work that brought him face to face with Christian Zionism, occupation, and global silence. And he joins us now to unpack what's really happening, and most importantly, why the voices of Palestinian Christians matters now more than ever. Reverend, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you.
Reverend, you spent some time in East Jerusalem, working directly with Christian Palestinian communities. What do you wish South Africans and the rest of the world needs to understand about the reality of life for Palestinian Christians under this occupation and in recent times under this genocide that has been perpetuated by this Israeli pariah state?
Thank you, Salala. I think firstly, we need to understand that Palestinians are human too, and they don't have any other home except Palestine. Palestinians who are in the diaspora were forced out because of the well-documented 1948 struggles, which led to the common name known as the Nakba, which in Arabic means crisis. So Palestinians are human, and they just want to enjoy their humanity like all of us in the world.
Most definitely. We often hear, this rhetoric, this conversation, coming out from Western media outlets, and especially from Christian Zionists, that Muslims are driving Christians out of Palestine. From what you witnessed on the ground, what kind of facts can you share with South Africans, and the experiences that you've came about noticing about the interactions between the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims in Palestine?
What I can say is that Palestinians as a people are not homogeneous, which is why you have Palestinian Christians, you have Palestinian Muslims. They are Arabs by nationality or ethnic group. So like any other human society, they express their humanity differently. They coexist. They are neighbors. They are families. It's like me being a member of a particular political party and my siblings being members of a different political party. So they're just as human like all of us. And having lived there with them, you cannot even tell that what the Western media or any other media that is opposed to this Palestinian struggle, that what they're telling is actually true. When you live with them, is a totally different situation. They are welcoming, very hospitable, and they love life like all of us.
Mm, mm. Why do you think, though, with that being said, the Palestinian Christians are often so ignored or maybe erased from the narrative? When you speak about Israel and Palestine dynamics, when you speak about, the occupation of lands, when you speak about this ongoing genocide that we're seeing unfold today, why are the voices of Palestinian Christians not amplified as they need to?
Palestinians are speaking all the time. It depends who wants to listen. And the fact of the matter is that those who profess to be in the Christian faith, we all know the setting or the scene where Jesus Christ's mission was unleashed, which is God's intervention in bringing about humanity to humanity, humanity to the divine. So if you want to speak about the original Christian communities or disciples of Christ, you have to go back to Palestine. And who were those people? Those are the very same Palestinians today who do not have the right that others enjoy in their homeland.
Mm, mm. In your view, what does true Christian solidarity with Palestine look like at this point? Just going beyond the slogans and then the hashtags online. How do Christians here in South Africa and across the world pledge and show their solidarity with Palestinians? And it doesn't matter whether it's Muslim Palestinians or it's Christian Palestinians, but Palestinians, as you mentioned, humans that are, I think, are at this point experiencing some of the worst atrocities that we've seen in recent human history.
The most thing that we need to plead for is for all the forces that are fighting for the liberation of Palestinians to come together and join hands, irrespective of whether you are a Jew, you are a Muslim, you are a Christian, you are an African traditionalist. It doesn't matter what label you carry, as long as we believe that our freedom is incomplete, as Nelson Mandela said, until Palestinians are also free. We need to realize that when we continue to work in opposition or in silos, we are actually strengthening the agenda that is keeping the people of Palestine under occupation. So we must call out to everyone who support the Palestinian struggle to join forces, put our differences aside, and seek one thing, and that is the liberation and the freedom of Palestinians in our lifetime.
Mm. How important is it, when we talk about the Palestinian discourse and the continued ongoing genocide and the mandate to eradicate Gaza and Palestine of its indigenous people? How important is it to attach or detach the element of religion to it? Because I think the conversation that's being heard a lot is understanding that what we are witnessing in Gaza and Palestine at this moment is not a religious issue. It's a human rights issue. It's a right denied of humans, as you've quoted, Palestinians in this case, to essentially exist. Should we or should we not entertain the element of religion in this discourse?
Firstly, I must say that what is happening in Palestine has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with Zionism. And Zionism is a nationalistic ideology like many other ideas that you have in the world. They are mainly concerned with issues of land, people of Israel as they define them, and having a Jewish state. So you are having a situation where certain political activists within this ideology utilize a bad experience, which all of us condemn in the world, of the Holocaust, to justify their continued discrimination of a people who were not even responsible for the pain that was caused on the Jewish people. So we need to invest in education, be patient with one another, demonstrate even within the biblical texts how God always took the side of the marginalized, the side of the poor. The very same story of the liberation of the people of God in Egypt, led by Moses, is another indication of the liberation motive and love which is embedded in the Christian faith. So all this misinformation, it is something that we must work harder to address, because those who are pushing misinformation have many resources, they have influence, and they're in spaces where the majority do not have a lot of influence. So we need to invest a lot of time in education.
Mm, mm. Would you say, the church has done enough when it comes to driving that message of solidarity with the people of Palestine, whether it's here in South Africa, or across the world?
I would say the church, like any human institution, is not perfect, but there are many pockets of proof that the church has stood with Palestinians. Has the church done enough? I want to say no, it has not done enough. It can do better if it also invest in this education that I'm talking about, to unmask the untruths that have been attributed to the biblical texts, which have nothing to do with the God of liberation, the God of love, the God of reconciliation. The fact that the anti-apartheid movement for Palestine against the Israeli apartheid state is led by a well-known veteran, Reverend Frank Chikane, is one but many examples of how the church is in solidarity with the people of Palestine. And the church is not just the hierarchy. The church is full of those people who are sitting on those pews. So even our own perspective to who and what the church is, it needs some further education.
Mm, definitely, and I think it's interesting, when you make those parallels, especially with South Africa and Palestine. You've been involved in the anti-apartheid movement for Palestine. In what way does the situation in Palestine mirror what South Africans experience under apartheid here at home, and how does that resonate with some Christian teachings?
Firstly, what is happening in Palestine is worse than what happened in South Africa. This is an established fact. All you need to do is to visit Palestine, meet Palestinians, also go to Israel, meet Israelis. Any South African who has gone through and experienced apartheid, by simply landing in Palestine, in Israel, you can see through the checkpoints, you can see through how the Palestinians are treated at checkpoints, not having rights even to access significant places of worship. That tells you of something that is even worse than apartheid. What helped us in South Africa is simply because we are welcoming just like Palestinians are. And Ubuntu has taught us that our existence is tied, is linked to the existence of others. And what we can say to the people of Israel and to the people of Palestine, it is possible to defeat the evil of occupation and reconcile and become one people and enjoy life as God intended all of creation to enjoy.
Mm, mm, I mean, Pastor. Um, I want to touch on something which is very, very important, and I think it's important because I think it also highlights the presence of Palestinian Christians in this discourse. From what you've noticed and the ties that you probably still have with Christians in Palestine. what would you say the impact the Israeli occupation has had on Christian spiritual life in Gaza and in all of the occupied territories? Is it pushing people to lose faith, or is it deepening their sense of resistance?
Palestinians have amazing reserves when it comes to resistance, which is not abnormal. Because if you know one home, which is your home, and someone comes in and wants to move you out of your home, where else do you go? So the resistance of Palestinians as a collective, as a people, must never be compartmentalized. Because whether you are a Palestinian Muslim or a Palestinian Christian or a Palestinian atheist, the commonality of the Palestinian people is that all of them were born in Palestine. They did not choose to be born in Palestine. It is God who placed them in Palestine. And we just need to stop all of this and see what this is. It is a colonialism of a special kind, worse than apartheid, worse than what the whole world has ever seen.
Definitely. Lastly, Reverend, before I let you go, what is your message today to fellow Christians who still remain on the fence or who are being swayed by Christian Zionist rhetoric when it comes to the discourse on Palestine and just the reality on the ground and what it is for the people of Palestine?
I want to say it is important for us as Christians to make it a priority to visit Israel and Palestine, find the facts, and know what is truly happening firsthand. That is important. There are many difficulties, obviously, in terms of traveling there. As we all know, it is a war zone, if I may put it like that. So it is extremely important for us Christians to know that the love which God had and still has for South Africa, that love is not exclusive to special groups in the world. The same love that God has for the Zionists, for the Israelis, for all those who are doing wrongdoing, it is the same love that we in South Africa as Christians must tap into to say when we are speaking in different tongues pertaining to injustice, we ourselves are complicit to what is happening to the Christians, to the Muslims, to all peace-loving people in Gaza, in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, even inside Israel, where you also find Palestinians, even Black Jews from Ethiopia and different parts of the world. We as Christians in South Africa can go back to our story and share how we went through our own challenges and how we continue to fight the evil of the legacy of apartheid. And if our story is not inspirational to us, then we have no one else to point at but at ourselves. And there's always room for repentance, and God always forgives those who confess, and we can get this thing right. This is where I'll end as Lila.
Thank you so much, Reverend Solomuzi
Thank you
Mabuza.
very
Really
much.
appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
They have it. There is a Evangelical Lutheran church in Southern Africa, ordained minister, Solomuzi Mabuza, just unpacking, I think, a very, very important element, and I think an element that is not spoken about enough, the element of Palestinian Christianity, and how in itself, as an institution, I think it's facing all kinds of pressures. It's facing, I think, a similar, hardships that the Muslims and the Jews and all the marginalized groupings in Palestine and all the occupied territories also continue to face under this Zionist rhetoric, and the divide also within the Christian space itself, between the Christian Zionists and Christians, Palestinian Christians. I think it's a story that's not spoken about enough, and it's an element that we don't unpack enough. But with that, keeping in mind, and this is very, very important to note, as the Reverend mentioned there, that what we're seeing in Palestine, what we're witnessing happening in Gaza, it's not a religious issue. I think at no point was it ever a religious issue, but it was in fact, and it is in fact, a Zionist agenda. A Zionist agenda that seeks to wipe out a people, no matter they are Christian and no matter they are Muslim, as long as they stand in the way of a Zionist national agenda, then they are a threat, and a threat that should be eliminated. And at the end of it all, despite the badges and the compartments that we put people in, these are still human beings, and that's what we need to note. There's a yearning for human rights that I think all of us need to advocate for and shout for when it comes to Gaza and Palestine, despite all of the compartments and the names and the badges and religious denominations that we might identify with. So very, very interesting element, and yeah, really interesting conversation there with Reverend Mabuza. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, news and views continues after this.